Thank you guys for tuning in to the Bootz Sports Show. I'm your host once again, Bootz, and I know you got to be excited, Cowboy Nation, for this upcoming weekend. A chance to enter the realms of the playoffs in the NFL, and your leader Tony Romo playing really very good football at this time, and it looks like the offense is starting to move in the right direction. And we're going to talk about a bunch of things today on the Bootz Sports Show. First, you can follow me on Twitter, Jerry_Holman, and that's Holeman, Jerry_Holman. And if you have any email, fan mail, you can hit me up at bootsports@yahoo.com. And that's if you have any questions, anything that you'd like to help out with the show, any information questions, any arguments, whatever you got. I'm willing to bring that up on the show. First things first, let's get right down to the show right now. Can we stop trying to fire Jason Garrett? You know, we got to look at the situation we're in right now. This isn't the time for media and fans to be questioning Jason Garrett and his future with the team. And let's assess his situation a little bit. In 2010, Jason Garrett takes over for Wade Phillips, which was a football team that had given up. Jason Garrett quickly comes in, gets the team to play better down the stretch. 2011 is a lockout season, which basically in 2012, which was this year, it was the first time Jason Garrett had a chance to put his stamp on the team. Even Rob Ryan, if you will, as far as his defensive demeanor. Neither of these coaches were able to mold the team in the way that they wanted to. So this is their first full preseason hands-on with the team. So don't, run them out of town just yet, these coaches. Now I know they've had their share of coaching blunders. We started out slow start, starting at 3-5. But if you listen to my Podbean site, which is still up, and that's bootsports@podbean.com, I warned you guys that this team was going to start out slow and it was a work in progress, and that it was going to move forward and start to develop as time went on, as the season wore on. And a lot of the moving parts of this team in the beginning of the season, and literally moving parts, no pun intended actually, but the offensive line. We jumbled around all the offensive line positions, moving Tyron Smith from right tackle to left tackle and Doug Free from left tackle to right tackle. We brought in Nate Livens, the left guard, and the right guard was Mackenzie Bernardo, and then the center was supposed to be Costa, but he got hurt in the Giants game. And then Ryan Cook, who they signed a few days before. This was a jumbo offensive line that, even healthy, which for the most part it's been, sans Phil Costa, the center, it was going to be a learning curve for all of these guys. There were new guys, new teammates, new positions. And for most of them, it was a pretty new offense. I mean, if you think about the center of the offensive line, the actual center, not just Ryan Cook, but from the guards in to the center, it was a new scheme for these guys, a new offense, new offensive coordinator, new offensive coach, the whole nine. So it was going to be a work in progress. We knew right away. If you would listen to the Bootz Sports at Podbean website, I was forewarning you that this team's going to get way much better down the line. So you're starting to see a lot of the youth start to mature. And to be honest with you, the team is about, I figure even today, even that we're in this position where if we win 820 FedEx Field, we will have we will secure the division by winning the NFC East with a 9-7 record. And even knowing that, I still think this team is 1 to 2 years away. Absolutely. And I'll explain that why. You got a running back in DeMarco Murray, who the team is finding out more about. wide receiver Des Bryant, who is literally blossoming right before your eyes. You're watching him grow. And our inside linebacker position, remember, we didn't even know that Bruce Carter was going to be the inside backer that he is today. We've kind of brought Dan Connor in just in case Bruce didn't work out. Well, guess what? When Sean Lee went down and Bruce Carter was given reins to the defense, he was magnificent. He was just as good as Carter, just as good as Sean Lee, and I'm talking about Bruce Carter. He was just as good as Sean Lee playing that position and looked better in some games. So we now realize that we have two very good inside linebackers who are going to be, if you're a Cowboy purist, Cowboy fan, and you understand the game and you like the game, you can't wait to see these guys are going to look like next year. Now, all of these things that are happening, I'm watching, the leadership skills on this team start to build. I'm listening to guys like Tony Romo, and I'm watching these guys mature right in front of my eyes, and it's awesome because a couple years ago, they were questioning the leaders on this team. And now this team's going to get a chance, to put their money where their mouth is. The coaches will too. And let's face it, you see this team doing things right now at this stage of the game, which is getting better. They weren't doing that before. They weren't getting better. They were getting worse down the stretch in previous years. And speaking, of the maturation process and getting better at the quarterback position, the offensive line has started to do that. And I think that's the reason that this team is playing better down the stretch versus previous years. So another thing that I'm having a problem with, and the media's got to stop blaming Tony Romo for every single thing that goes on. Now, everybody's asking this question: what if Tony loses this game? I've heard fans, I've heard anti-fans, I've heard media, I've heard everybody ask that question. What if Tony doesn't win? What if he doesn't win the game? And I say, is he to blame? Can we finally say he's cursed or he can't win in the big spot? Let me tell you something. Some of these people, they don't understand what a career is. And sometimes we get in the habit of having to see results right now. We got to see it now. Now, Tony's been in the league 6 years, 7 years. That's not an eternity in the league. But what if Tony goes out, if you guys want to put him on the spot? Let's say the Cowboys lose this game to the Washington Redskins. And he pitches a game like he pitched against the Saints. 416 yards, whatever it is, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And we still lose. Do you still blame Tony? Does Tony still get blamed? You can't blame Tony if he goes out and pitches a near perfect game and we still lose. So it depends on the scenario. Now, if Tony goes out there and throws 4 interceptions and we can't convert on third down, first down, stuff like that, then it's gonna be tough on Tony. I'm not expecting that because I don't recall Tony playing this well this late in the season ever before in his career. He always seemed to struggle a little bit down the stretch closer to these games. So this is a different year for him. He's probably going to throw for 5,000 yards this year. So let's not get into nitpicking Tony. Like, this isn't the time to put Tony on the block and start asking him all these questions. This isn't the time to start nitpicking the coaching staff and nitpicking the running backs. Oh, we got 2 fumbles and 25 carries or whatever it is. This is the time for Cowboy fans like you, like me, to be tough, stand up, and root for what we love and the product that's out on the field. Stick together. That's what this is about. This is the time for that. We had all year to nitpick what Tony was doing and what that route was Des running. Now we don't have to do that. So, and listen, come Sunday night, 8:20 FedEx Field, it's going to be a defining moment for this era of the organization. We've had other defining moments, other guys. Troy Aikman and Emmett and Staubach, Meredith, all these guys, Danny White, these guys all had defining moments. They've had their time. But this is a defining moment for this organization to turn the page on some bad football. I know Tony sprinkled in a couple good years, and we've had a few good seasons, but bad playoff football. So, but I'm gonna ask you this: who is it more defining for? Is it more defining for Tony Romo, or is it more defining for Jason Garrett? Who's the guy that really the microscope is going to be on? And I think that, to be honest with you, I say Jason Garrett. And you'll probably say, why? Because everybody wants to hang Romo, and I got it, But I say Jason Garrett because Jason Garrett was paid a king's ransom to be an offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. He was paid more than the head coach, who was Wade Phillips, his predecessor. And he was expected to be a genius. He was promised to be. Every coach in the league said this kid's an up and coming star, as far as coaches are concerned. And Jason Garrett was thought to have been creative. I think Jerry Jones thought he was going to be what Sean Payton was to the Dallas Cowboys. He was going to be and what he's been to the Saints. But I think he thought that Jason Garrett reminds me of Sean Payton, some of his concepts, his offensive concepts, and his play designs. And up until now, he really hasn't been that. So he's got a chance to embark on a very, very promising future here and a long-term career with the Dallas Cowboys as a head coach. And I believe it starts Sunday night. Tony Romo, no matter which way it goes, he's going to have naysayers, he's going to have believers, non-believers, whatever. But Jason Garrett, his legacy is going to continue or start to be built on Sunday night, win or lose. That's what's going to be talked about. And when you look at Jason Garrett's process, and for those of you that's not familiar, and I listen to every press conference that he's done. Every coach since I've had internet, I've listened to every single press conference, whether it's Parcells, whether it's Wade Phillips, even Dave Campo. Every single press conference that's been, I've listened to every single one. Jason Garrett has beat us fans, the media, the team, in the head. He's beat us in the head with this process. The process. And I know it's a boring... Jason Garrett, let's face it, he's a boring speaker because he's too analytical. Everything he says, and he's brilliant at it, but he's not a funny guy like Bill Parcells was, or even Wade Phillips. He had a little charm, little humor every once in a while, or he at least attempted it. But Jason Garrett is a very, very he's articulate, but he's calculated. And when he says things, you don't catch him snoozing. If you ask him about next week, he's going to tell you about tomorrow or today's practice. If you ask him about these next 2 games, he's going to tell you, well, there's a process, and the first thing you have to do is you have to have your first practice. And then the second thing you have to do is you have to practice well. And the third, so he's very, 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 like I said, he's very calculated. So you're not going to get much from him. But his idea is if you take one step at a time and you focus on that first step and then the second step and then the third step, and you make each step your first step. So if you step once, that's your first step. The next step is the first step. And you keep doing that and you're focusing on making all these steps perfect, then everything else down the road will take care of itself. And it's a great, first of all, in life, it's a great way to look at things. It's a great way to take pressure off yourself down the road. I'm not worried about winning the Super Bowl. The first thing I want to do is have a great practice. And that's awesome. Think about yourself. Everybody worries about, oh, I got this work week ahead of me. Oh, it's Monday, Monday, Monday. Well, you know what? Put your shoes on first. Warm your car up first. Get to work safely before you complain about. This is the way that Jason Garrett has built this team, the media and the fans. He's beat it into our heads. So I noticed that when they asked Tony Romo in a press conference, and it seemed like he thought he was out of the playoffs, because what he said was, we're still in this thing if we beat Washington, right? And I don't know if he was talking to Tim Calishaw, who's a beat writer for, I believe, the Dallas Morning News. But it was like, I was like, you know what? Jason Garrett is really, really got these guys believing in play this game, then it's the next practice. Because how could you not know that if you win and beat the Redskins, you win the division? How could you not know that? Because I said it to myself, I'm a little offended that Tony didn't know that if we won the division, if we beat the Redskins, we win the division. Because I said to myself, well, maybe if he didn't, maybe there would have been more drive. And I started thinking about all these little weird things. Maybe he'd had more drive if he'd have known. And I said, no. Jason Garrett's plan is he's really embedded that into these grown men. So it's got to show up. Jason Garrett's process has to show up. And I'm hoping it shows up, and I'm sure you are. You're hoping it shows up Sunday night. But this team, week in, week out, it shows you fight. That's been this team's mantra, Garrett's mantra. And the offense is starting to become a prolific offense. It is really starting to flourish. And that is a very, very, very positive thing for us. Is that we're going to be able to score points no matter what the situation is. Now, our defense is another story. And truth be told, it's been decimated by a combination of injuries and subpar play. That's been kind of what our defense has been made of this year. Now, that's been a sore spot for us, and that's the negative. But my little sneaky butt, I found a positive out of this. Because that's what I've been trying to do. I'm a positive Cowboy fan. I don't wear rose-colored glasses, but I'm a positive Cowboy fan. You want to know what the positive is? If you've been following the Cowboys, if you're a Cowboy fan, and I'm speaking to everybody, and I do appreciate you for tuning in and listening to me. I'm Bootz Sports here. But the positive is that I think I'm liking the defense with these hungry guys off of the street. These guys were sitting on their couch. Some of them were sitting in offices. Some of them were selling insurance. I don't know what they were doing, but they weren't playing football when we signed them. Brian Schafering was not working. Ernie Sims was not working. Eric Frampton, these guys were sitting at home, and I'll bet you, these guys that we brought in, I'll bet you they thought that their football career would be done, or is done. I'll bet you they thought that. So what I like about these guys, and yeah, I'm drawing, I'm stretching a little bit here, but they're hungry players, man. This is hungry. This is really hungry players. These are players that are trying to not only audition themselves to the Dallas Cowboys, and in retrospect, bring more money into their household. They're trying to eat. These guys are trying to play. And that's what you want on Sundays. I mean, how many guys we see loafing around in a Cowboy uniform or in other teams' uniforms? Albert Hainsworth. They got paid and then they got fat. Didn't show up in shape. Signed that big money and they're not playing as well. And some of them will tell you, I'm paid. Remember, you guys remember the classic phrase? What did Darren Hambrick say? What do voluntary mean? That's what it means. Guys got paid. They were satisfied. These guys, at least I know, they're not the best talent now. But I know they're not satisfied. I know they're not paid. And I know they're working for employment. And I'll take that if I got to. I believe these guys are going to play hard. Now, when you got guys like that with their backs up against the wall and don't know if they're ever going to play a down of football, that's the kind of guys you want on your team. That's what you want. So, let's talk keys to victory. Okay? These are the keys to the whip. The keys. My first key to victory is this, guys. Murray has to improve his play. It's got to be better than it was the last couple weeks. And I'm talking about not just the 2 fumbles, and I definitely need him to protect the football, but he's got to be more efficient in his running. Now, I know he's banged up. I know he doesn't have the explosion that he normally would have. He's got a bad foot. I understand that. But you know what? This isn't the time for that. This isn't the time for that. Everybody's banged up. Everybody's got a bad foot. He's got to be more efficient running the football. He's got to select his holes better. He's got to read his blocks better. I think he's got to catch a couple swing passes, and I'd like to see a couple slip screens to him too. I'd like to see him in space. He is fantastic, and I wish he was healthy. If you guys notice when Murray gets the ball and it's one-on-one, it could look like there's a cluster of people in front of him, and somehow he cuts across and he's so far away, and then he's up the field. Usually when he's catching a ball out the backfield, it's amazing how that guy never gets near him. But anyway, I'd like to see him more involved, but more effective. He's got to protect the football, though. My next key, Romo, as good as he's been, okay? And he's been great. He's been great. But this is the time right now where everybody's got their binoculars on, Romo. Everybody's got that fine-tooth comb. Everybody's got that. They're looking at you. And they want to analyze everything you're doing. Now, look. He's got to dispel some of these myths about performing small and big spots. That's his job. He's got to do that for his kids' and grandkids' sake, not mine. Because there'll be another quarterback, for us. He's got to do that for himself. He wants to be able to tell people he made it to a Super Bowl. He was good enough to play in a Super Bowl, or he hoisted the Lombardi Trophy. He's got to stand tall and make good decisions. He's got to make great decisions, and that's going to go a long way in building his legacy. It really is. It's going to really kind of define who he is. Okay? And I know we talked about the defining moments, but it's going to define who he is. Another thing, guys, is our ragtag defense. That's another key, by the way. I know we're missing players due to injuries, and now what they got to do, this defense, because we don't got the right guys out there, you know that. But they got to make it easy on themselves, like by not allowing blown coverages and miscommunications to happen on this field and make easy scores for RG3. They gotta play better. They gotta attack. They gotta be ferocious. I don't think RG3 is healthy, and I don't think he will be through the whole playoffs. If you saw that injury that I saw, guys, you know that he's been banged up. He's banged up. And I watched him play against the Eagles. He wasn't healthy. He didn't have the mobility. He didn't have the burst. Now he'll probably be a little bit better this week, but he's not the same guy. He's gonna try to run first on the opening play or something, just to put fear in us, to let him know he can run, and hope that we play and sit back and let him throw, because he does not want to run this game. But defense, you got to be sound, schematically sound. You got to be, because we lost the last game on Thanksgiving to this team because we made blunders. Awful, easy touchdown easy touchdowns we gave up and cost us in this game. So we got to play better. We got to make it tougher for RG3. Okay? Last thing I'll say is special teams. We got to play better on our coverage units. Okay? Specials, we got to play better on specials. And we've been bad on coverage, and I think a lot of that is we got a pretty bad punter in Brian Moorman. Now, Chris Jones was our punter to start the year, and he got banged up. And we go through punters now every single year, getting punters broken feet and all kinds of crazy broken legs and all kinds of stuff. We got to do a better job protecting these punters, because if you watch every game, it looks like 1 or 2 punts are almost ready to be blocked, and that's every single game. We got to do a better job on special teams. And Brian Moorman is not the best punter, so we got to cover exceptionally well to compensate for the lack of punting that we're getting from Brian Moorman, because this kid Brandon Banks, this kid's elusive. He can return them. He's elusive. He will eat up yards. I don't want 25 plus punt returns, kickoff returns. We just got to be better. We got to be better. So those hidden yards, guys, make a big difference. And you guys know that. I'm just telling you because we're talking, because we're family. This is Cowboy Nation here. But those yards are important. And lastly, I know, let's put it this way. I hate when coaches, including Jason Garrett, says that there are 3 phases to football: offense, defense, special teams. I hate it when Coughlin says it. I hate it when any coach says, well, you know the 3 phases. Because I disagree. And I've always disagreed with that statement. I think there are 4 phases to a football game, and we've won 3 of them this year and lost the 4th in a lot of games. And that 4th phase is coaching. And that phase, to me, Garrett has to be as good or a better coach than Shanahan this week. And that's asking a lot, because Shanahan is a Hall of Fame coach. And trust me, if he was a borderline Hall of Famer before, which I don't think he was, he's going to definitely be one with this kid, RG3. But you can't go out there and be small in these coaching spots like Garrett has been all year. He's done the last 2 years, to be precise. You can't have a blunder where you don't call a timeout in the Baltimore Raven game, last year's Cardinal game. You can't have a situation where you run 15 seconds off the clock against Drew Brees and allow him a minute with 2 timeouts to run down the field and kick that field goal before the half. You can't have any, and not in these spots, not in this playing game. You can't do that. You have to be sound. So his clock management has been poor all year. You know that. His situational awareness has been abysmal at best. So he's going to have to really, really do a phenomenal job in that aspect. Because if we win most of those battles in the other 3 aforementioned keys, we're going to lose coaching, we're going to lose the game. And you're going to lose a game because of coaching, and that is the worst way to lose. It is the worst way to lose. There are many coaches, I can think of all of them. Every last one of them, too. I ain't going to name them all. But you think of the Morning Wags. You think of the Wade Phillips. You can think of a lot of coaching catastrophes. Like the Music City Miracle. Listen, man. When you lose a game like that, it sticks with you forever. Forever. I hold Bill accountable, too, for that Seattle Seahawks game where that screen pass in the end zone resulted in a touchdown, that screen pass to Terry Glenn. That was a bad coaching job. You don't throw screen passes on the goal line. I know I'm venting a little bit here, but I've seen it, and every time I see it, it doesn't work. Ask Mike Tomlin this year, did he throw a screen pass that bounced off of somebody and ended up in the back of the end zone? Listen, guys, coaching losses are the worst. I don't want to go out like that, and I know you don't either. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm wearing this Quincy Carter jersey. This is a number 17 Quincy Carter jersey here. Because I remind myself, and some of you fans who hate Romo, who want a different quarterback, you should remind yourself where you've been. That's what you should do. You should take a look back at history and remember the inept quarterbacks that you had. The Chad Hutchinsons, the Clint Sterners, I mean, come on, man. Quincy Carter's, Vinny Testaverde's. Remember those bad quarterbacks when you start to cast out Romo and you want a new quarterback. But guys, in closing, I think we can win this game, and I think we will win. Now, I don't get into point spreads, and I don't get into over-unders and all that stuff. I don't get into score predicting. It's just it's nothing but rhetoric. It's all conjecture is what it is. I don't get into that. I get into win-loss. Because I don't care about how much you win by or how much you lose by. I just care about wins. And Tony Romo is going to make the difference. This is the best he's played down the stretch. He's playing great football. Him and Dez are the best tandem right now since he started playing great. Tony's starting to play great. That should let you guys know that some of these issues, communication issues they were having in the past, they're starting to work through them together. And that's a leader. These guys that say Tony's not a leader, that's a leader. Tony's made that. Tony can't. And listen, I'm going to tell you something. There's a bite right now out on sound effects right now. You want to find out what kind of quarterback you got? You go to NFL Films and look at that sound effects, that Tony Romo sound effects for the Saints game in a loss. You go look at it. And I bet you come back with a different mindset of who Tony is. Alright? So, he's a tremendous difference maker. You know I'm on the Romo bandwagon. I've always been. And look, I'm not going to keep you long. You know that. But I love Tony. And I'm actually scared to even be around Tony. I love him and appreciate him so much. Because I might give him one of these. One of them things them young people's doing out there these days. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do when Tony comes around. I might do that. I might give him this sign here. That's the heart sign. I don't know. That's how important he is to me as a Dallas Cowboy fan. So, watch him. Win with him. Because if this bandwagon gets full, you're going to be mad that you off it. You'll be embarrassed. So, he's a difference maker. I think we're going to win the game. And I have no doubt in my mind that Tony Romo will be there tooth and nail. And remember, guys, he always brings you back in the game. So whatever the situation is, if it's a blowout and we win, fine. If we're down, Tony's going to get us back in here to win the game. We're going to have a chance. It doesn't matter what the score is. You've seen it. You've seen it week in, week out. Guys, thank you so much for listening to me. bootsports@yahoo.com. Definitely email me if you have anything you want to say. Fill up the comment section at the bottom of the page. Let me know how you feel about Cowboy Nation. Let me know how you feel about being a Dallas Cowboy. Let me know how you feel about being a Redskin. Click like on my page. I'd appreciate it. If you like what you hear, definitely click like. It only takes 2 seconds, and I appreciate you for giving me that. Guys, have a happy holiday. Have a happy new year. And enjoy this football weekend. We will be talking playoff football, regardless of whether the Cowboys are in or out. We will be talking playoff football on my next show. This is Bootz Sports. Okay? I thank you for listening. Have a safe, happy holiday. Go Cowboys.